So again, the Biden administration's plan here is, what if we then relieve student debt? And the reason they're doing this is because the only people in America who don't hate Joe Biden's administration, like hate it, are college-educated white liberal women. And so why not just give them some money? I mean, that'd be definitely the way out of this. So Jen Psaki was asked a question yesterday, a pretty easy question. So you're trying to fight inflation. When you relieve student debt, aren't colleges just going to raise their prices? Because after all, that's now the government just subsidizing things. One of the reasons for increased healthcare costs in the United States is the government subsidizes via Medicare and Medicaid. And so healthcare providers then respond by raising their prices. If I knew that the government was going to cover half the price of a subscription to Daily Wire, I would then raise the subscription price on the Daily Wire by about 50%. The reason being, I know what subscribers are willing to pay, and then I would just add on the government on top. So when you relieve student debt, colleges just raise their prices. Jen Psaki has no answer on this because these people don't think through any of their own positions. It's just a bunch of throwing almost literal horse against the wall.
What is to stop some of these schools from just increasing tuition for the next generation of students? Isn't that half of the equation here?
I don't know if people would consider half of the equation. I don't know. We'll let Americans define it. I would point you to the Department of Education to talk about their efforts on that front.
Oh, well, she has nothing. I mean, weird how she has nothing. By the way, you want to know why colleges cost so much? One of the reasons the colleges cost so much, and this was tweeted out by a person named Theo Jordan. He tweeted out the staffing at some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion positions at one major university. This is one major university. Okay, you ready for this? Here we go. We're going to read off some of these positions. This is why colleges cost so much. Because administrators versus teachers, way more administrators now than there ever have been before. This is one university alone. $289,600 salary for the Associate Vice President at the Office of Institutional Equity. Associate VP of Talent, Diversity, and Leadership, $262,000. Vice Provost, Diversity and Inclusion, $257,000. Associate Vice President, Office of Institutional Equity, $220,000. Associate Dean, Diversity, Inclusion, and Outreach, $183,000. Director, Office of Institutional Equity, $155,000. By the way, I don't even know how you distinguish these positions. What is the difference between the Vice Provost at Diversity and Inclusion and the Director at the Office of Institutional Equity? And this list goes on. It goes on for 4 pages. For 4 pages. Just keeps going and going and going and going. Total cost to this university, this Ohio State University, by the way, major university in the United States. Total payroll, $10 million per year. Fringe benefits, $3.2 million per year. Total compensation for your diversity, equity, and inclusion staff, $13.4 million every single year for a bunch of career useless people. You wonder, by the way, this is why Democrats want to sponsor people to go to college. It's not because you need to go to college in order to be a plumber. It's because degree inflation is a way for Democrats to spend government money on things they can pretend work and also hire a bunch of their friends in diversity, equity, and inclusion and indoctrinate people into the process. This is a large scale, it's also a large scale make work program. It's sort of the opposite of the Tennessee Valley Authority circa 1935. Instead of getting people to go and work in a valley building a dam or something, instead you send them to a garbage college, not OSU, but you send them to some random community college run by Joe Biden, where they learn about diversity, equity, and inclusion for 3 years and don't enter the unemployment rolls. And then they get out and they are good little liberals who proceed to vote for policies that create work for diversity, equity, and inclusion officers. So really brilliant economic policy all the way around by the Biden administration, as always and forever. Meanwhile, the situation in Ukraine continues to worsen because there's not an area that this administration does well on. Russia is now cutting off gas to 2 NATO nations in a bid to divide the West. This was perfectly predictable. According to the Associated Press, Russia cut off natural gas to NATO members Poland and Bulgaria on Wednesday and threatened to do the same to other countries, using its most essential export in what was seen as a bid to punish and divide the West over its support for Ukraine. The move was immediately condemned by European leaders as blackmail and marked a dramatic escalation in the economic war of sanctions and counter-sanctions that has unfolded in parallel to the fighting on the battlefield. The tactic came a day after the U.S. and other Western allies vowed to rush more and heavier weapons to Ukraine. It could eventually force targeted nations to ration gas and deal another blow to economies suffering from rising prices. At the same time, it could deprive Russia of badly needed income to fund its war effort. Well, yeah, but Russia's the one cutting off the gas, so my guess is that they probably already have a backdoor deal with China to buy all their gas or India to buy all of their gas. Poland has been a major gateway for delivery of weapons to Ukraine. Just hours before Russia's state energy giant Gazprom acted, Poland announced a new set of sanctions against the company and other Russian businesses and oligarchs. Bulgaria, under a new liberal government that took office last fall, has cut many of its old ties to Moscow. And meanwhile, their gas is also being cut. The gas cuts don't immediately put the two countries in dire trouble, but somebody is going to have to make up the difference. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said, quote, "It comes as no surprise the Kremlin uses fossil fuels to try to blackmail us. Today, the Kremlin failed once again in his attempt to sow division amongst member states. The era of Russian fossil fuel in Europe is coming to an end." Well, it could be coming to an end. Maybe it would be coming to an end more easily if the United States were filling the gap, considering the United States was until very recently a net exporter of natural gas and oil. Unfortunately, this administration is so ensconced in its own wild progressivism that it can't even face up to the realities of world politics. So you had State Department spokesperson Ned Price literally yesterday talking about how we have to transition away from fossil fuels, and that's the solution. By the way, simultaneously, they're attacking the leading electric vehicle manufacturer on planet Earth in Tesla. Tesla's bad, manufacturing EVs. Also, we need to get away from fossil fuels. Also, we need everybody in Europe to be independent of Russian natural gas and oil. If you can square that circle, you're the geniuses who created stagflation in the United States. Here's Ned Price at the State Department.
We are working with our European allies and partners, as well as others, to transition away from Russian sources of energy and ultimately to transition away from fossil fuels entirely and to continue this transition to renewable, to sources of energy that will see to it that neither the United States nor any country around the world is held hostage to a country like Russia, who can close the spigot whenever they so choose.
These absolute buffoons. They're such buffoons. You know, it'd be great if they didn't control the spigot. But you idiots decided to let them control the spigot. By the way, the leading idiot among all idiots is always, forever, John Kerry. How this person was ever considered anything beyond just a grifter who married his way to wealth. His path to power was go to Harvard because you're a Boston Brahmin, and then do so poorly you end up at Boston University Law School. And then marry a ketchup heiress. Just slow clap for John Kerry, who's been wrong on every major issue in American life his entire career, including slandering American soldiers in Vietnam as war criminals. Well, here he was, literally yesterday, talking about, we can't have U.S. companies expanding oil production. His face collapsing like a mudslide in the Hollywood Hills. Here we go.
One thing that seems worrying is that as energy prices soar, a lot of fossil fuel executives are smelling a business opportunity. I mean, their stock prices have been rising. They want to drill more, not less. What do we do about that?
They have obviously, many of them, not all of them, decided that this is an opportunity. Now we have the latest warnings even of the IPCC telling us unequivocally that we're really at the crunch time. I mean, this is crunch. So people are going to have to get a lot more serious than they have been about accelerating this transition.
This administration pursuing foolishness every single day of the week, and the policies probably should put them in charge of free speech, right? We should give them more power. That's the solution. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.